Dimensions. In this video, we're going to be starting our Feeding Assistant Training Module 1. What you're going to need for this training is your Feeding Assistant Training packet and a highlighter and a pen or pencil. Your Feeding Assistant packet should look like this. I'm going to include a link in the Google Classroom so that you have access to a digital copy of this, but I really think that it's going to be beneficial for you to have something physical in front of you. So if you don't have the packet, please make sure that you get one from me or Mrs. K. We should have enough for everybody to get their own Feeding Assistant packet. If you're watching this because you are absent, please make sure that you get one on your next class day. So we're going to be starting out with Module 1. So go ahead and open up your packet to the table of contents. Let's talk a little bit about what we are looking to accomplish out of this training. So in the table of contents, we have our nutrition, hydration, and therapeutic diets, communication and interpersonal skills, resident rights, infection control and sanitation, feeding the resident, and that's it. If your packet happens to say appropriate responses to resident behavior, that's something we're going to cover in the next unit. We're not going to be doing that right now. We'll be doing that, next year. So go ahead and flip over to Module 1, Introduction. This is right where we are. Generally, when we're going through this packet, I really prefer this to be more of a discussion. So there will be certain points throughout the video where I'll stop it, and then I'm going to have you guys have a discussion either with a partner or with the instructor who's running this, and you guys can get a little bit more out of the lecture. Okay, so Module 1, Purpose. The curriculum was developed by for use by participants in a feeding assistant training class. So the goal is for residents to receive more assistance with eating and drinking to help reduce the incidence of unplanned weight loss and dehydration. So the highlighter that you have, go ahead and highlight that section. Reduce the incidence of unplanned weight loss and dehydration. So first question, why do you think that's important? When we're talking about feeding assistant training, that means this person, who's probably older, is unable to feed themselves anymore. Why do we care if they lose weight? What could that signify? What I would like you to do is in your, maybe some margins over here, can you guys please jot down a couple of ideas? Why do you think it's important that our residents don't lose weight? After you have discussed, take a few minutes to think, pair, and share. So I want you to think about your answer, write it down, look next to you, and then share your answer with your partner. You guys were able to discuss some really great ideas. I would really like to see these after you guys have completed them. So you've already talked with your partner. I want to see what they look like. At the end of this module, there's going to be some questions that I'm going to look back at and grade. I'm also going to look back here at those responses you had to that first question. Flip over to page 3 under Introduction. So we're still in Module 1 in Introduction. The meaning of mealtime. Has anybody ever thought about this before, the meaning of mealtime? Probably not, because it's one of those things that you and I take for granted because it's just so normal and it's just an everyday activity that we do. But it is more than just the simple intake of food, so it's also a time for pleasure. I think you guys could probably agree with that, because how often do your friends say, hey, let's go to Applebee's to get some food? You know that it's not just you're going there to eat, you're going there to hang out with your friends, right? Same with when you go to bowling and you go get food first. It's definitely something more than just food. So the company of friends and family adds social enjoyment, and often mealtime becomes a pleasurable experience associated with home. Mealtime can be the highlight of the resident's day. We're never going to know this, so we just have to assume that this is a big event for our residents living at the nursing home. Food choices may have been influenced over time by many factors, including culture, emotions, surroundings, people around us, personal views of ourselves, foods that were available at a given time in our life, and what people know about nutrition. So, many lifestyle changes which accompany the aging process can take away from the residents' dining pleasure. You guys will see this as soon as we get to the nursing home. Some residents have a lot of difficulty swallowing, and they won't eat much because it is a very stressful time for them. Each individual resident reacts really differently to mealtime depending on the type of medical conditions they have going on. So, as a person ages, physical challenges may interfere with the ability to open packages and cartons or the use of utensils. Please highlight that. As a person ages, physical challenges may interfere with the ability to open packages and cartons or to use utensils. If you didn't write that down, go ahead and write that down. Breakfast is at 7:30, lunch is at 12:30, dinner is at 5:30. Those dinner times do not change no matter what day of the week it is. If it's a holiday, it always stays the same. Now, that's not to say that lunch or breakfast or dinner might be a little bit late just because the tray line got behind, but generally they try to stick to a pretty close schedule just to make the nursing home flow a lot nicer. So the meals occur at about the same time, but they don't occur always in the same place. Breakfast sometimes occurs in the resident's room if they choose, sometimes in the dining room. Lunch is generally in the dining room, and then dinner is also in the dining room. What I've noticed about the New York State Vets Home, at least post-COVID, is they have one dining room for everyone. It doesn't matter their ability. And it's not like that at every single nursing home. A lot of the nursing homes I've noticed have two separate dining rooms. So like at Eastside Nursing Home, they had the solarium, which is where some residents would go. Usually the people that needed to be fed would go into the solarium, or if they were just requested not to leave the floor, they would go into the solarium. And then anybody else that was a lot more independent, had a lot higher social needs, or just requested to go down to the dining room, they would head downstairs into the main dining room, and it was much more restaurant style, where they would have the tray line right there. The kitchen was right there, and all the food would come out from the kitchen. But the New York State Vets Home runs that a little bit differently, so they'll have everybody in that one dining room together. So we might be sitting next to somebody that's completely alert and oriented while we're feeding another resident that has lost the ability to feed themselves. So we just need to be incredibly, incredibly conscious when we're feeding at the vet's home that we are not making anyone feel uncomfortable, because it's kind of a hard dynamic to get through. If one resident needs more help than the other, we don't want to ignore the one person while we're trying to work with the other person. So we just have to kind of just be cautious and conscious of that dynamic. You should have just read page 4, and you talked about caregivers' attitudes. I would like you to take a minute to write down in those margins 8 different ways you can be respectful during mealtime. Think super basic, okay? Don't overthink this. When you're at mealtime with, say, friends or family, what are some ways that you can be respectful? I'll give you an example to start with. Chewing with your mouth closed. That would be a great way to be respectful. What's another type of way you could be respectful toward other people? How about not interrupting others as they're speaking?